night of the beefed up patrols netted 2 stolen guns and illegal drugs. The president says he is cracking down after a number of high-profile crimes in the capital city. But D.C. police says violent crime is actually down 26% this year. CNN's Brian Todd explains.
House official tells CNN that this stepped-up federal law enforcement presence will include officers that will be in, quote, marked units and will be highly visible. This increased presence, which actually began at about midnight on Thursday, is being led by the U.S. Park Police, but will have participation from other agencies, including the U.S. Capitol Police, the FBI, the U.S. Marshals Service, the D.C. Metropolitan Police, the DEA, and other agencies. This will be focused, according to this official, on high-traffic tourist areas and other known hotspots. You can count on them being around a lot of popular bars and restaurants and those types of areas in Washington, D.C., especially in the evening hours. A spokesperson for the D.C. National Guard has told CNN that the National Guard has not been activated as part of this process. Now, in recent days, President Trump has said the administration has been considering, is looking at the possibility of what he called federalizing the entire city of Washington, D.C., and he's looking at the possibility of the federal government taking over, at least temporarily, the Metropolitan Washington, D.C. Police, which they can only do temporarily if they want to do that. This is all in response to an attack last weekend on a young former Doge worker who was assaulted during an attempted carjacking in Washington, D.C. That was early last Sunday morning. Now, President Trump has lambasted Washington, D.C. in the days since that incident occurred, saying that crime was rampant, including murders, robberies, etc. But according to the D.C. Metropolitan Police, violent crime has in fact gone down in Washington, D.C., and gone down considerably from a year ago at this time, about 26% down from that period last year. Now, CNN has reached out to Mayor Muriel Bowser, to the D.C. Metropolitan Police, and we've reached out to all 12 members of the D.C. City Council to see if any of them will comment on this increased federal presence and on President Trump's ideas about federalizing the city and other things. Well, all of them have declined to comment or not responded, with the exception of one D.C. City Council member who told us that their frustration was that neither the Biden nor the Trump administration have nominated enough judges to handle the criminal caseload in Washington, D.C. Well, again, you get silence from most of these D.C. city officials except for one, and that is D.C. Democratic Representative Eleanor Holmes Norton. She is D.C.'s delegate to the U.S. House of Representatives. She's been the only person to come out actually on the record and issue a statement about this. She issued a statement to CNN saying that sending in these officers throughout the district is, quote, a disproportionate overreaction that is offensive to D.C., and Norton is warning that this is a needless escalation that will heighten tensions and potentially make Washington, D.C. less safe.
Brian Todd, thanks so much. All right, the student newspaper at Stanford University is suing the Trump administration. They say the decision to use part of federal immigration law to target and deport pro-Palestinian activists has put a chill over students' First Amendment rights. It's the latest legal challenge to 2 provisions of the Immigration and Nationality Act. Those provisions allow Secretary of State Marco Rubio to revoke student visas or try to deport them. They have been key to the so-called ideological deportation policy being used by Homeland Security. CNN has reached out to the Trump administration for a response. We've yet to hear back. The lawsuit is being brought by the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression. Connor Fitzpatrick is their supervising senior attorney, and he is with us right now. Good to see you. So walk us through why these 2 provisions are at the heart of this case.
So for the last 5 months, Secretary of State Rubio and the Trump administration have been using 2 provisions of the INA to target non-citizens, especially on college and university campuses, for protected speech. And it is sending an unmistakable message to our international college students, which is watch what you say or else. Criticize American foreign policy or the Israeli government at your peril. And that places free speech in peril here in the United States.
And what is it that students are saying about how they feel like their own First Amendment rights are being infringed upon?
The best example is our client here, the Stanford Daily newspaper at Stanford University. They have international students, students who are here on student visas, who write and edit for their paper who are absolutely terrified to even report on Israel and Palestine or report on the pro-Palestinian protests at university, lest someone in the Trump administration see their reporting or see their name on a news story about a pro-Palestinian protest and throw them out of the country. And that's simply not tenable for a free press and free speech here in the United States.
And then you also have two non-citizen former students who are part of the lawsuit. What is their point of view and their concern?
Their concern is that, like so many other non-citizen students here in the United States, that simply by virtue of them sharing an opinion on social media or going to a protest, bedrock types of protected speech, going to protests and voicing an opinion about the American or any other government has been core civic activity since the United States became a country back in the 18th century. And they are scared that they are going to be thrown out of the country, not for anything they did. These are not kids who vandalized a school or blockaded people from going to class. That's a very different matter. These are people who shared an opinion, like Mahmoud Khalil, like Ramesia Ozturk, and now fear being thrown out of the United States because the government doesn't like what they have to say.
Do you see potentially that this is going to become a U.S. Supreme Court case?
I think it has the potential to. So we know from the Supreme Court back in 1945 in a case called Bridges versus Wixon that the Supreme Court held that lawfully present non-citizens in this country are entitled to First Amendment protection. Now, what the Supreme Court hasn't done is ruled on that issue in the context of the legislature and the executive branch exercising their immigration power. But in our view, if non-citizens have a right to freedom of speech, and the Supreme Court says that they do, well, a right has to mean something. Having a right means that you're allowed to do something without the government retaliating against you. And no one in the United States, whether they're a citizen on a visa or visiting Disneyland on vacation, should fear a midnight knock on their door from government agents because they said the wrong opinion.
All right, we'll leave it there for now. Connor Fitzpatrick, glad you could be with us. Thank you so much.